Welcome to Footnote. I'm your host, Maggie LaMonica, and today we're privileged to have with us the author, Dr. Jill Carroll. She's written a book called A Dialogue of Civilizations, and this powerful book takes us on a journey into the level of resonance between Islam and the West. In her book, Dr. Carroll discusses the ideas of Fethullah Gulen, an influential Turkish intellectual and scholar of Islam, and finds echo in the context of larger humanity. Thank you so much for being here, Dr.
Thank you, Maggie. I'm glad to be here.
Tell us about your background and what inspired you to write this fabulous book.
Well, background's a long story. We could do a long show on that, but in terms of my scholarly background, I mean, that's really what inspires me to write. I am a specialist in religion, in the religious studies. I have a PhD in that. I'm a college professor, and when I first encountered the ideas of Fethullah Gulen, I was immediately impressed and blown away by the kind of connections that I saw in his work and some of the other work that I've done and was familiar with just from being a scholar in the humanities. And so that really was the beginning thing, the germ that inspired me to write the book.
Okay. Tell us a little bit about Gulen and his philosophy and how this all kind of started to come together in a cohesive form.
Yeah. I learned about Gulen not from reading his work at all, but from visiting Turkey in December of 2004. I was part of an interfaith trip of people from the Houston, Texas area and maybe a few people from Oklahoma and others, and we were on a trip for about 10 days. We went to Turkey, and we visited all over Turkey, but we visited these schools and hospitals and things, and I learned later that they are all run by people who are inspired by Mr. Gulen's ideas. And so I thought, who is this person? And so when I got back, I began to do my research, and I discovered this whole career, this man and this whole career of his as a scholar and as an imam, as a preacher in Turkey, and this whole body of work. And so I began to do this work and read his work, and was very impressed with his ideas. He's a classically trained Islamic scholar coming from the Sunni tradition, which is the largest body in Islam. It's very powerful stuff.
You met him.
I did meet him. I was very fortunate and honored to meet him about a year ago.
And you had a couple of interactions.
I did, yeah. It was actually it was September of 2006 when I met him, and he. The group I was with, a small group, we flew in and went to visit him, and he was very gracious with us. He stayed up late because our plane was late and it was storming, and it took us several hours longer to get to him than we thought. And he was very gracious and stayed up and waited for us to come so we could eat dinner together. And then we had a breakfast with him the next morning. And I was very honored to meet him. And when I did meet him, I knew I could feel that I was with someone very special. He has a very calming spirit, and he's funny. He's got a sense of humor, which is always nice. It reminded me of the Dalai Lama, because the Dalai Lama is a very calming, peaceful person, and he's also very funny. So
I think laughter is calming.
It is calming, and it means you don't. The Chinese have an interesting saying. They say, the master is someone who takes serious things lightly and light things seriously. There's a kind of paradox there, and I found that in Mr. Gulen.
Yes, that's amazing. But I think it is true. Just because people are very educated doesn't mean they can't be funny.
That's absolutely right. And just because it's a serious topic doesn't mean you have to be somber about it.
Right. Why does this movement deserve so much attention, do you think?
I think it deserves attention for a couple of reasons. For one, it is faith-inspired, but it's not faith-based. And what I mean, and that's an interesting thing. What I mean by that...
What's the difference?
Yeah. What I mean by that is that the people who are involved in it and who teach in the schools and work in the hospitals and do the various initiatives, all the different cultural and business and economic initiatives, they mostly are people of faith who are contributing themselves and their resources as a part of their faith. So it's faith-based for them, but it's faith-inspired by them, but it's not limited to people of faith. It's for everyone, and it's not about converting anyone to a particular faith. In this case, it's Islam. It's not about trying to make the world Islam. It's just about trying to make the world a better place, a place of respect and tolerance, and to educate people to be people of conscience, to think about virtue and to develop virtues in themselves, and to be people of virtue in their community. So while it is sort of faith-inspired on the part of the individuals, it's not a faith-based platform. It's a transnational civil society movement. It's not a faith movement. It's not about really converting. It's not about converting anybody at all. So it's just very broad. So I think that's very notable, because that's a very interesting combination. Second thing is that it's very large. Some estimates say there are something like 1,000 schools in operation right now throughout the world, actually. And Mr. Gulen has now inspired 3 generations of people in Turkey. So it's beginning to have critical mass now.
And this is important, though, too, again, that part of the reason when you say faith-inspired, not faith-based, part of the big problem in the world today is that people say, well, if you're not doing what I'm doing, then you're wrong. That doesn't, we can all be different and still united on one front as far as humanity.
Absolutely, yeah,
That's
because
key.
exactly, it's central, because we can have connection because we have common concerns. We all have concerns about having a peaceful society so that we can live our lives and be happy. We all have concerns about educating our children to be the adults that they are meant to be and to come into their perfection. We all have ideas about how to make our society safe and productive and communal. These are common human concerns of people everywhere.
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 No matter who you are, no matter where you're from.
Exactly.
You and I were talking earlier about we have some similarities in our past, but no matter what continent you're on, we all have the same, we all have feelings.
That's right.
We all want
That's
we
right.
all want the same things.
And at the same time that we have those concerns, you know, there are differences. And we are different. But those things don't have to be a barrier to relationship.
We don't have to be afraid of our differences. We can unite on those. And you say in your book that people are very scared of getting out of their comfort zone if something's, and if it's unfamiliar to them, then they just shut it out. So let's talk about that a little bit and how frightening that is.
I think it's a human tendency, and I don't necessarily think that it's bad, that we tend to gravitate toward things that are like us, and toward people that are like us, and toward people who think the way we do, because that feels comfortable and familiar. If it's, say, something we grew up in, I mean, the deep grooves of our consciousness are made in that context. So I don't think it's wrong of us that we tend to gravitate toward things that are similar. However, we don't live in a world where everyone is gods. We have different lifestyles. We have different worldviews about life and the world and reality and what we're supposed to do here and how we're supposed to be. And we don't have the option anymore of just isolating off from people who are different from us, especially in a country like the United States, where we've got all the world's religions alive and well here, all kinds of people, atheists, secular people, religious people, all sorts of different ethnic and racial communities. This is an immigrant nation. We don't have the luxury of just being with people that are the same with us. So it challenges us. This kind of diversity challenges us to step out of our comfort zones. And that can be uncomfortable, but we still have to do it. I have a little saying that I like. It says, if you're not feeling the stretch, you're not doing the work. It's kind of like yoga, you know? It's like you need to feel that stretch and feel that little bit of discomfort and then come to be okay with that.
And it might be discomfort in the beginning, but again, then it's also so enlightening, and it's really, really special to kind of get out of your comfort zone. And again, we go back to that thing that even though it's different, at core, we're all really very, very similar.
Yeah, we're very much the same. And it can be empowering when we step out and we take the risk, step out, connect with someone who's different, and then see that it actually can be okay. Then it's like, okay, well, good. I can be empowered in this situation. I don't have to be afraid or freaked out or scared that people are different. I can just be with that and just learn that actually we can find connection even though we're very different.
We can always find a human connection.
Yeah,
yes,
we're humans. We can find a human connection.
And we need to act like it. In your book, you group him with several other really notable...
Big-time notables.
Big-time notables. How'd you... go down that path?
I put him with the greats because in my career as a college professor, I've taught these people for 20 years. The great people of world thought, not just the West, but world thought. Confucius from China, Plato, which is also Socrates, they're together there. Immanuel Kant, great Enlightenment philosopher, Jean-Paul Sartre, French atheist existentialist, John Stuart Mill, British social theorist. And these are people, along with scads of others, that I've spent my career teaching in colleges and universities, and I love their ideas. I love philosophy, I love world philosophy, looking at how different philosophers from around the world and thinkers and scholars attack the questions that are central to what it means to be a human, you know? How did we get here? Who are we? What are we supposed to do now that we're here? How are we supposed to live? How do we deal with death? What are we supposed to give ourselves to? How do you define the good? How do you raise up people? How should we become the people we're supposed to be? And so these are the ideas that I love about world philosophy. And when I read Mr. Gulen, I see that he's concerned with those exact same ideas as that I've been spending my time with and my career with for 20 years. So some people say, well, are you saying that Gulen is as great as Plato? You know, I mean, these are the big names of world. Well, I'm not saying. I wanted to bring Islam into this conversation. And Mr. Gulen is such an eloquent spokesperson and scholar in Islam. I thought, well, let's use him and bring him into this world conversation.
Yes, and it's not about comparing him to the...
No.
He has a lot of the similar philosophies. That's, I think,
Yes,
the central theme
that's
is
the point.
is that
There's points
all
of
these
resonance.
great thinkers, regardless of what the minimal issues, they all feel the same.
Yeah, I mean, on certain issues, they are absolutely in connection with each other.
Tell us about, there are 5 major themes, dialogue themes in your book, and you know, and we start with inherent human value. Let's talk about those and how you came to that.
These themes are the ones that, you know, that Maggie, the thing about writing a book is that you get to write what you love because it's your book and you get to write it. And I picked these themes for a lot of reasons, one of which is that they're themes that I love. I'm obsessed with these themes. And so I picked them, but I also think that as a set of 5 themes, they hang together really powerfully. And so I start by putting Mr. Gulen and Immanuel Kant into a dialogue around this issue of inherent human dignity and moral worth. Because for myself, I think that if we are to have a workable world society that's good for people, that's good for everyone, where everyone can feel as safe as we can feel, then you have to begin with that commitment. The commitment that says every human being has inherent worth. Every human being. Not just beings that look like me or that think like me or are from the same part of the world as I am. Every human being has inherent moral worth. And to me that seems like a groundbreaking thing, like the basis of if we're going to have a peaceful society in a global sense. So I thought that was the most important thing to start with. And then that transitions to the next chapter, which is Mr. Gulen in conversation with British theorist John Stuart Mill on the notion of freedom. And so that's unpacking this notion of, you know, once we've acknowledged that human beings have inherent worth, there are many things that make human beings special, but what is the one thing that if it's hampered, it minimizes our human potential? And it's freedom. Freedom of thought. Freedom to think, to inquire, to think about our experiences, to reflect on them. This is how we have wisdom. We don't have wisdom without freedom to think. And to, I mean, we'll have experiences, but if we don't have the freedom to talk about them with other people, to join together with others and discuss them, and to process them, and to write about them, and express those to the larger community and have a discussion, this is what it means to be human. And so freedom of thought seemed very central there. And I think that we can see even historically that in societies or political structures that clamp down heavily on freedom of thought, that's a dying society. It may live for a short time because of the strength of the muscles and the weapons of the rulers, of the dictators, but a society that over time clamps down on people's freedom to think.